The home screen of a modern gaming console is premium digital real estate. Historically, hardware manufacturers have treated this space as a walled garden, reserved exclusively for selling their own high-budget titles to a captive audience. Sony is the primary architect of the strategy. For years, they have maintained a rigid divide between their platform's visual identity and the software it runs, keeping third-party titles at arm's length to ensure the PlayStation brand always remains the central authority. That long-standing corporate boundary is currently being dismantled. Sony is currently redesigning the entire PlayStation 5 user interface to accommodate a single game. This includes custom welcome animations that appear as soon as the console starts, themed icons integrated into the PlayStation app, and direct pre-order buttons embedded into the system menus. This deep platform integration is dedicated entirely to Grand Theft Auto 6, a title that Sony doesn't own and has no direct control over. By breaking its own internal marketing rules, the leader of the console market is signaling a change in the hierarchy. For this release, Sony is acting less like a gatekeeper and more like a subordinate partner. Sony's platform concessions are a response to the specific scale of the product described in the recent Amazon Brazil leaks. The leaked data describes an in-game social network where players track missions through viral videos and follow digital influencers. This moves the experience away from a traditional action sandbox and toward a dense simulation of urban life. The engine driving this world relies on AI-powered NPCs that function independently of the player. Unlike previous generations, these characters do not rely on pre-programmed loops triggered by player proximity. These characters maintain independent schedules. This flowchart shows how an NPC's routine branches based on dynamic events, interacting without a predictable path. When millions of these routines overlap, they create a massive interconnected web. The result is a simulation so dense it exerts a gravitational pull on consumer attention. The sheer complexity of this virtual world creates a product capable of dictating consumer spending habits across the globe. For Sony, the choice wasn't about UI design. It was about aligning their hardware with the only software release powerful enough to move millions of consoles in a single week. Retail data confirms the economic force this software commands. The technical complexity of the game is translating directly into a massive hardware advantage for PlayStation. Current figures show a staggering disparity. For Grand Theft Auto 6, the PlayStation 5 captures roughly 86% of the pre-order market share, leaving Xbox with just 14%. Sony uses this to create a psychological lock-in, ensuring the massive audience views PS5 as the default hardware. This momentum is already creating supply concerns. Major retailers are warning that physical console stock may not be able to keep pace with the demand surge expected this November. Surrendering the UI is Sony's calculated investment to win the hardware war. They are trading their platform's visual neutrality for the chance to capture every new hardware buyer before the inevitable shortages hit the market. This represents a shift in industry power. When software reaches this scale, the platform owner must adapt its architecture to the game rather than the game adapting to the platform. Sony's aggressive focus on physical hardware sales stands in direct opposition to the strategy currently being pursued by Microsoft. Microsoft is placing its long-term bet on Game Pass. They are attempting to build a service-oriented future that survives regardless of who wins the immediate battle for physical console sales. But that service-first model is struggling against the immediate demand for a physical, blockbuster release. Because the game won't be on Game Pass at launch, consumers are defaulting back to the traditional hardware-first mindset. This hardware frenzy is visible across the entire industry. Even niche devices are seeing extreme market behavior, driven by consumer desperation for physical gaming machines. Valve's unreleased Steam machine is already appearing on eBay, with scalper prices reaching $3,200. Sellers are marketing nothing more than a confirmed place in a digital queue as a high-value asset. This scalping activity reveals a physical hardware economy that is highly vulnerable to supply and demand shocks. It shows that despite the industry's move toward digital services, the desire for physical hardware ownership remains at an all-time high. The upcoming launch serves as a global stress test for the entire market. It is a demonstration that a single software release now has the power to dictate the movement of millions of physical consoles and redefine the strategy of the world's largest hardware manufacturers.